Today's guest has faced high-stakes moments on and off the field. He's played top-tier soccer, coached rising stars, juggled family life, and taken one of the toughest tests of mental and physical strength on reality television. He brings sharp thinking, fierce heart, and a bit of cheek to everything he does. Whether he's running drills, raising teens, or outlasting his tribe on Survivor, he shows up fully, backs himself, and brings others with him. In this episode, we unpack the mindset behind performance under pressure, the truth about life on the island, and what it takes to lead, adapt, and stay grounded in chaos. From the pitch to the fire pit, he's got stories, strategy, and some real key takeaways. Rise and thrivers, this is Paul D. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. I'm really pleased to be here.
Mate, I feel like I know you because I've been watching you in my lounge room, episode after episode, and we as a family love sitting down and watching Survivor and have for years. But for those unfortunate people that have not seen the latest Australian Survivor, who is Paul D when the cameras aren't rolling?
So when the cameras aren't rolling, I'm actually just a really down-to-earth, normal sort of dad and employee for the business that I work for and so on. But yeah, quite a driven person. Have a corporate career that I do during the day. Certainly my passion lies after hours where I get a chance to continue my sporting interest in football. So I coach a football team in the New South Wales Premier League. Strong family man, love raising my two children. We've got a 17 and a 14-year-old, so they keep us busy. I reckon a lot of listeners would be able to relate.
I could certainly relate to a lot of the things you were saying. I'm not the soccer coach. You had some success as well with the team, didn't you? Didn't they win a premiership not too long ago?
Yeah, so that was our first premiership in this competition. That was unfortunate timing in a way where I knew we were on the verge of achieving that goal that we'd set ourselves, and it was the first that the club would have achieved in its history. So I got the chance to go on to Survivor before that season finished, but the players and the assistant coaches finished the job. So when I got out, I had some really good news waiting for me about their achievement.
Excellent. So a lot of people go into the show with these major life events happening and or leaving young families behind and whatnot. So that must add to the things that you've got to deal with on the show. But let's not. I'm going to ask you some questions about that
Okay.
later. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But you were on Australian Survivor Brains versus Brawns in Samoa. It looks amazing part of the world. And what was it about Survivor that kind of called you at this stage of your journey in life?
That's a really interesting question because we have been fans of the show forever. Like we've watched every American series, we've watched every Australian series, and both children have grown up. That's like our family TV show. We set aside time, we draw our names out of a hat in a sweep, and the winner gets to choose dinner, right? Of all things at the end. So I've always said since the kids were able to speak, they would know that I've wanted to go on, and every single year I say that I'll do it, and then I didn't get around to actually finishing the application. And it was only when my daughter now, when she was 13, I said, I'm applying. Lexi's her name. So Lex, I'm applying. And then she waved me off and said, you'll never do that, Dad. So stop talking about it. And that was the final motivator that I needed to put the application in. And yeah, long story short, I was shortlisted and went straight onto the show and got to live my dream. So it was a brushing off from my daughter that was the final push.
Yeah, right. And what was it like when you got the notification? What, did you just get an email saying, hey, you're successful and what the next steps are? What happened?
Well, your hopes build up as you go through the process. So when you get interviews over Teams, and then there was panel interviews in person and so on, but you get an inkling that you're getting closer and closer as you go through each of those stages. But no, the head producer makes a personal phone call to each participant, and I could have been in a Toyota ad. I jumped. I was in a quiet section of the office. It was a work day, and I jumped and almost hit the roof when I was told that I was finally going on. It's such a build up, and you can't help but get your hopes up that you'll make it. But I was ecstatic when I found out.
I didn't realize it was that arduous a process, like a job interview, really. Several interviews or several things. I guess they want to make sure they've got the right fit for the show and the right amount of people and personalities and whatnot.
Yeah, some psychology work as well. Like you've got to go through. There's a whole host of it. It's quite detailed in the background. They certainly have a quite a stringent process of establishing who would go on and what and for what reasons, and are they resilient enough to last.
Yeah, now I'm glad you mentioned resilience because in those harsh conditions, so look for that one person that's listening that doesn't know about Survivor. 25 people go on an island and they've got to survive, and they've got to survive challenges, limited food, sleeping in the wild. I was going to
In
say,
the
but
elements.
yeah,
Yeah,
sleeping in the elements. That's a
yeah,
better way to put it. So hunger, cold, everything. They're real things. So you must have resilience to be on that show. And we've got several, we've actually got season 2 of this podcast dedicated to resilience. But I was going to ask you, what does resilience mean to you, and how was that so important in your survivor journey?
yeah. It's actually quite critical because the one consistent question that I get after leaving the show was, I reckon 1 in 2 believe that there's additional support that lays off camera and you get food and you get warmth and you get protection from the elements, and all of that is nonsense. You are out in the elements and you are on your own. So
Wow.
now going into it, you know you'll be tested because the creature comforts that you enjoy at home, they are no longer. So you are wet and you are cold and you are hungry and you are with strangers who are ultimately there to try and remove you from the show so they can win. So being able to deal with adversity and just stay mentally focused on what your goal actually is,
Mm.
despite some of the down moments that you are inevitably going to have when you're out there. So that mental reset that you had to sort of go through, I tried to do that each night, but I was prepared going in. I broke it up into blocks and I said, I know the sun's going to be shining and I'll feel really good a third of the time. And there's probably going to be a third where I'm sort of somewhere in between. But
Mm.
I was prepared and I only counted 30 days and said, let's just go 30 days, not the full 46. But I was expecting 10 of the most brutal nights. And if one hit, I kind of smiled through that and go, here's one of them. You need to enjoy the real tough moment because that kind of tests you and compares you to the others and say who gets through this night really easily, because some certainly don't.
Well, that's really good preparation, but also that's really good life lessons, because sometimes you've got to do exactly the same thing in life. Figuratively speaking, the sun's not always shining.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Some of the family needs, like I lost count of how many times either in sport you'd have to play injured and you're not feeling great, but you have to go out there and do your best. It's the same,
Mm, mm,
if it's a tough night, and especially when you're raising young kids and you don't get much sleep, and there's not a lot of sympathy that goes around. I think you're still expected to wake up and show that sort of, I don't know, internal strength, just to get through it and do what you need to do to
yep,
achieve what you've set out for the day. And it was
yep.
no different. Out in Survivor, it was absolutely no different.
Showing up's half the battle, but at Survivor, you have to show up because you're there.
Yeah.
uh, I've heard recently a saying, "I don't feel like it is. It's not feeling like it's not part of the criteria." And I thought that was really interesting, because like there's plenty of times for resilient and successful people, they might not necessarily feel like it, but they know they've got a commitment or a vision or something that they want to
Yeah.
achieve, and they go, okay, well, I'm not going to listen to my mind on that one. I'm going to head for the objective and do what I need to do to get done what I need to get done.
Yeah. I think like in so many areas, anyone that can turn that internal voice off and push through and not listen to it,
Mm,
or achieve their goals even when they're not feeling at their best and having a great day,
mm,
they're the ones I think that go from good to great. The ones that have achieved really great things, I tend to think that's one of the common links. They're able to turn that voice down, or at least not silence it potentially, but they've worked out techniques to get beyond it and not
mm.
let it be the thing that stops them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And lately, I've been learning how the brain and the mind, it's trying to do its job, which is keep you alive. That's its number one
Mm.
goal. But in our modern society and some of the things that we want to do, it's not always serving us. So, in a particular situation, I imagine in Survivor, your brain and your mind's going nuts, going, I got to keep you alive, Paul. We've got to do this. Meanwhile, you're hardly eating, it's raining,
Yeah.
you don't have your Maslow's hierarchy of needs sorted
Yeah.
out. and and yeah, tough.
But most is survival. But I also think that most of our heads will try and find a way to be comfortable as well. I don't think we're built to be uncomfortable
Mm,
and navigate through that challenge so well. Certainly, in my experience, most would try and find, a comfortable place,
yeah,
and not really like sort of have too many challenges or adversity, that
yeah.
they need to face.
And it can become comfortable as well. Because if you're in a particular situation for long enough, it can become comfortable. Now,
Yeah,
I'm going to use
yeah.
a really gross expression that I don't think I might even keep with the end version, but someone said to me once, if you sit in your own shit for long enough, you don't mind the smell.
That's one way of putting it. I'm
So
aligned to the principle, but I try and find
we need a
another
better
alternative.
we
Yeah,
need a better metaphor, don't we?
yeah, yeah.
We're talking about some of the preparation you did, maybe mentally, and you knew what was, and you tried to prepare for some of the things that you were going into. What what actually physically are you allowed to take in there?
So when you go on the show, it's incredibly limited. So you can
Mm,
take what's on your person. So it's in your wardrobe, you need to get approved. So you can't actually take any hiking gear or anything that would sort of be considered just not standard dress wear. So you submit your wardrobe, they approve your wardrobe, and you take what's on your person. And literally all you're allowed to take are five other components. So a t-shirt, a pair of underwear, like you can take five individual items that will be given to you
yeah.
throughout the course of the show. But there is nothing else. There are no razors, no deodorant, no toothbrush, no hairbrush, no anything. It is literally what's on your person plus five.
Is there anything that's specifically banned on a list that says, or I suppose that's all covered with? It's like you can just your wardrobe's approved, as in what you're going to wear, as when
Yeah,
you go in, and you get five other things.
yeah, yeah. But no, like you can't take a raincoat. Doesn't cut it.
Yeah,
An overly warm jacket or anything. If
yeah,
you think about some of those shops now that are quite trendy with, you know, mountain biking and hiking and all those types of things,
mm,
don't even bother setting foot in those stores because yeah, that is just not approved. You
yeah,
are to live in your everyday attire that sort
mm,
of represents you, and
yeah,
you're out there just to face the elements
yeah.
with no advantages whatsoever. It's a very level playing field.
And it kind of makes sense if you're a survivor kind of castaway thing. You're not going on a holiday. You've just landed on an island, and you've got to
Yeah,
survive. You did say no raises and whatnot. Now, some of these questions are from my kids and that, Rob, but
yeah,
you did say no. But some of the contestants do look a bit more manicured than others.
yeah. There's nothing out
No,
there. No,
no.
there's zero out there. And unfortunately, my hairstyle that I keep protected quite well in the day-to-day life is something that I'll have to live with the vision of for a long while now. But
Yeah,
no, there's
right.
nothing. Yeah,
Like,
unless you get a chance to go, if you
yeah,
win some rewards,
yeah,
a shower and
yeah,
soap, and moisturizer and things like that. It's
yeah, yeah,
amazing how much you crave that stuff. But
yeah.
if you get given the chance to win,
Mm.
you fight tooth and nail when you know that that's on the line.
Yeah, right. What about, got to go there again? What about going to the bathroom, mate? What's
Yeah.
the story there? Is there any privacy, or what is
Uh,
it?
no, there is. I mean, some can opt to just swim on out into the ocean if that's what they choose. But
Right,
but now off camera there is a long drop that you have access to, and that's out of bounds for everything else. So
right.
yeah, so there is that, but
Yeah,
that's about it. Because the only other, I guess, comforts that you get is the sun cream and insect repellent, right? So from a
right.
safety perspective,
Yeah.
some of those things are covered, but yeah, very very little else.
Well, that's good to know about the sunscreen and the propellant. Because,
Yeah,
yeah, I wasn't sure about those because you do hear people talk about the insects or mozzies can be bad or whatnot. So there's protection for
yeah.
that, which is good. Were there any rules or behind the scenes restrictions that kind of shocked you when you got there?
The one thing that I guess it's a behind the scenes component, but the you are engrossed in the game in
Mm,
almost every way. So even if you travel between where your camp is and where the challenge is going to be,
yeah.
you have to get like minibus transfers that are through some rocky terrain, so it's quite a slow journey, but you're blindfolded, the way through that process, and there's no communication really from that point until the challenge, and after the challenge
Wow.
until you're back in camp. So
Mm,
it's almost like there's any gap between like the production from where the game takes place.
mm,
It's almost like it's on hold until you get back there, which is like fascinating to be part of, but it's completely understandable because that's what the viewers
mm.
see.
Yeah.
And if something doesn't happen in that forum, it doesn't happen. Essentially. So
Yeah.
it's controlled in that regard, where the cameras are rolling and the game is played within the game. Anything outside of that, it's just on hold.
That's super interesting. So
Mm,
you'll get transported to the challenges blindfolded and no communication. So that's it. Wow.
yeah.
Is it the same to tribal council?
Same process when you get to tribal council. And tribal council, I mean, you are there early just to make sure that you're ready and mic'd up and so on. But you wait for the sun to drop, and then as soon as darkness falls, you're into tribal council. And yeah, that's when things really start to heat up when you
Oh,
you
yeah.
hit the seat.
Yeah. And so it gives the impression you walk to tribal council, but are you on the minibus again with a blindfold?
Yeah, you get to the location,
Yeah.
and then
And
from
then
your
what?
location, you do
Yeah.
march into tribal. So there is a walk there, but
Yeah.
no, the beaches are quite secluded. So the
Yeah.
two separate beaches, you'd have no idea where you are or where the
Right.
other tribe is.
Yeah. Yeah. All
But when
right.
you leave your beach, you either go to tribal council or you'll be at a challenge site,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't know where you are
Yeah.
because you've left the camp
Yeah.
and you arrive, at whatever site you're going to be at. So
Mm.
you don't see much of Samoa itself.
Yeah.
You're deeply engrossed in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
which is so much fun.
Is this is so awesome for me to ask all these questions.
Yeah,
Is tribal outdoors or is it in a studio? Because sometimes it looks outdoors, sometimes it looks that could be in a studio.
completely outdoors. And if it rains, it rains. And you are thinking about, I'm going to be cold and wet again tonight when you get back to camp, if you make it back to camp.
Yeah.
But no, it's exciting. It's one of those places where you don't want to go, but
No.
it's extremely exciting to actually go. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you get to see Jonathan and engage, and you you
Yeah.
you you understand a little bit more about where your tribe's actually at and who you can trust. So, tribal plays quite a pivotal role, in understanding.
Oh, absolutely. And do
Mm.
they tell you which seat to sit on?
You do get allocated a seat. Yeah, so you walk in a particular order, and you get
Yeah.
given your allocated seat.
It looked that way because depending on who's aligned with who, or with some of the conversations that have happened. So
Yeah,
as you know, as a lover of the show, we're seeing all the scrambles, all the conversations, all the pre stuff, and
yeah,
everything. And then it gets tribal. It's like so exciting. And then we see with the seating, we go, oh yeah, well, that makes sense because they're aligned or whatnot. And then Jonathan asks questions that are based. They must give him some of the information of the conversations that's happened prior to tribal, because some of those questions were like, "Oh yeah, he's really prodding
yeah,
there to try and get a
yeah.
response." Because I'd imagine the temptation is I don't want to give too much away
Mm.
because that could then put a target on my back.
No, spot on. You need to be very careful about what you actually say, and sometimes people will say something quite deliberate to
Mm,
agitate. There's
mm,
no
mm.
question, but Jonathan is quite remarkable. He's very intuitive, and he's constantly scanning the responses of each player. And as soon as you give him one signal, he presses the next button. He's very good. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What else is he like? Because we're a bit of fans of JLP as well.
He He's super. Like he's got such a personality when he's in person. You can tell. Like he is the star of the show. But he's really engaging when he's there. We don't see him often. We see him at challenges or you see him at tribal, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
that's it. So you don't really converse with him outside of those forums. But he he's very charismatic, and yeah, he's just good fun to be around. So he loves the game and he's engrossed in the game with you,
mm.
and rides every up and down. So no, he's terrific. But the only wish is that you've got to spend more time with him outside of that forum. But yeah, it's not something that happens.
Yeah, right, right. The cameras are on, well, they look like they're on all the time because we see footage early morning and during the
Yeah.
day and at night sometimes as well. So is there a camera crew with you at your on the island all the time?
Yeah, pretty much. Even at night, there's like one cameraman that will remain the whole night.
Right.
But if there's a time where there's no cameras around,
Yeah.
you're just in a lockdown like sort of format. So you just won't talk anything about the game or anything strategic. It'll just be life, right? So so you have just genuine conversations with people, but it won't be anything linked to the game.
Right.
But if you were to go back after you'd lost an immunity challenge,
Mm.
then there are a number of cameras around because there's going to be that
Yeah.
inevitable scramble to try and align a position.
Yep.
So there's more cameras at that point in time than others, but they kind of fade away. Honestly, when you're out there, you just because they're always around, you just forget that they're there and they're part of the background almost.
Yeah, I wondered about that
Mm.
because sometimes when people say things and you think, "Oh, do you realise you're on camera?"
Yeah, no, you can't forget. Um, yeah, so it's quite an interesting thing because I always thought, how can you not know that there's a
Yeah.
camera right there?
Yeah.
So uh, mostly you're aware of it, but
Mm.
there are the odd occasions where you have to rethink what you're about to say and go, oh,
Mm.
there is a camera there.
And did you watch the season at home with your family? Because you would have, because you mentioned you do that anyway. Did you end up watching any episodes with any of the other contestants?
Yeah, we did. So we had. So I won't ruin it for anyone that hasn't watched the series, but we had some watch parties down in Melbourne. We had watch parties in Sydney,
Right.
and there are some fans that gather, and there are events that are that are put on around the
Mm.
viewing of the show,
Yep.
and hosted by some ex contestants from America, and some of the ex Australian contestants show up on the night.
Right.
And for finale, we had a big gathering
Mm.
at the winner, the ultimate winner's
Yep.
house. So no, terrific fun. And then the group together, you go in as complete strangers and you're
Mm.
competitors at the end of the day. But it's quite remarkable how close that group becomes over the course of the show, and even through the viewing of the episodes. And as all the players unravel and you see what really happens,
Mm.
the they become close friends, and some as close as family would be. So it's quite remarkable. You'll share that experience with them for the rest of your life, basically. Yeah,
Yeah, that shared experience bonds you together. I'd
yeah,
imagine there has to be a little bit of forgiveness in there as well. Like, everyone knows the ultimate of the game, right? So something's
yeah,
going to happen eventually where you have to maybe not do what you would do in the outside world and to
yeah.
progress yourself in the game. But yeah, I'd imagine there'd need to be a bit of forgiveness going on.
Fair to say there's a few apologies that get delivered after each episode. For the most part, people realise that it's a game. The
Mm.
true fans of the show love that that takes place, and you'd hope that everybody that watches the show and then gets onto chat forums and so on,
Mm.
these are just terrific people that have had the chance to live out their dreams.
Mm.
And what you see sometimes on television, like, that doesn't sum up the type of character that they are. So when
Yep.
you get to know the real person, even if there was a move that you didn't quite like and it might have impacted your game,
Mm.
you still get to know the true person that was playing that game, and
Mm.
you love them, not
Yep.
necessarily their moves.
Yep.
So it's all good. Yeah, the participants are all very, very tight together,
Yep.
and yeah, there's immediate forgiveness even if you see something that you didn't quite love on the show.
Yeah, that's nice to hear.
Yeah,
Very nice. Getting back to the cameras and everything, because it's always fascinated us at home when we're watching, and then you'll see something going on, and then there'll be a solo piece to camera.
yep.
So we're feeling like, oh, someone said to yourself or someone, oh, can we go over here and have a chat?
Mm.
And are they just interviewing you to get good content for the show about the upcoming tribal or something like that? Or how does all that work?
Every day there'll be an individual producer with a camera and a mic that will take you off set, like off site, basically.
Mm.
Yeah, you'll have your like one-on-one interviews. So it might be, take us through something that has happened, take us through something that you're planning. They'll go through your own strategy or how you felt about a particular move that was against you. So
Mm.
it really, it it dives into, a lot of what's happened to provide, the viewers ultimately with the insight that they need to get involved into the show, right, and understand a lot of what's happening. So
Yeah.
that happens every day. So you'll never know when, you'll be asked to go and complete that. But fair to say, if you were responsible or were part of, something major that was happening, there's going to be a one-on-one interview to discuss it.
Yeah. Because yes, it's at those times I've found that there's some of those things were said where you think, "Oh, do you realise your contestants are actually going to see this at some point when the show comes out?"
Yeah. And they're the cringe moments, because if someone has said, "Oh God, they're going to see this in 2 episodes,"
Yeah. Sorry, I really dissed you and said you were a snake. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. And you become friends, and you've forgotten that you've done that, and you go, "Oh goodness, there's something coming up that you're not going to love," and you try to get ahead of it, but 99% of it is all good. Like once you leave the show, everybody just respects that there were, things that happened on the show, and they just love that it's part of it.
The theme for this season was brains versus brawn, and I can see the massive appeal there because if you're kind of a smart intellectual person, or if you've got some strength behind you, there's something in that for everyone. Now, for those that are just listening and can't see Paul, he's athletic kind of guy, and you've been an athlete for a lot of your life. So you ended up in the brawn area. Were you happy with that?
Well, I don't know how I felt about that, because I didn't really see myself as a brawn type.
You're fully stacked.
I was happy. I was like, yes, this is respect. And I'm an old man now. I'd turned 50 when I was out in the show, so I was no, I was quite pleased that I was there. But the one thing that was quite evident was the brains definitely had some strength about them, and there was some really switched on smart people that were on the Brawn tribe as well. So despite the theme being one component, it was definitely competitive across both teams in all areas. So it was really good. It was a nice balanced group.
Paul's pretty humble as well, mate. You must go to the gym 3 to 5 times a week.
Yes, but I don't know if I do a hell of a lot when I'm there. But I've got a routine where I get up. The early morning starts are for me, because that's only me fighting the doona, and that's my time. I've got a busy lifestyle outside of that, so most mornings that's part of my routine and the discipline that I try and have in my life. I get up and do something for me each morning.
Yeah, great. We say on the show in the past, win the morning, win the day. So it sounds like you're...
Great saying. Yes. There's no excuse. The only excuse is your own motivation, I find. Like if the alarm clock goes off at 4:30, I don't think it ever feels great. But if you know what you're trying to achieve out of that day, it's a necessary component to get you up and help you, sort of set that goal and achieve what you want.
Yeah, and goes back to a little bit about what we were saying before, just because your mind says, I don't feel like it, or I don't really want to do this. You don't have to listen to that and just do it anyway. I've started 3 times a week in a group session with a personal trainer guy I know. And this morning I was up at 5:30 to be there by 6, not 4:30, but 5:30.
Yeah, that's good.
Is enough. And I found that structure works really well for me, because there's other people in the group, and if everyone decided, I'm not going to go, well, it wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
So having that group accountability as well has really helped me. One of the things that JLP said to you, I reckon, and so it's Jonathan LaPaglia, is that how you say?
Yes. Spot on.
Known as JLP. One of the things he said to you, which I thought you might have really liked, and I'll repeat it back to you, is he said, your biceps are bigger than mine, mate. Do you remember him saying that?
I do remember him saying that, and I cannot accept that. He is one fit individual, and yeah, he is in terrific shape. He's a doctor as well, so movie star, doctor, fitness fanatic. He's got it all. So he is a hell of a specimen with JLP.
Wow. That's something I didn't know about him, that he was a doctor.
Yeah.
And I know his brother's also an actor, so there's a bit of acting in the family.
Yeah, the parents must feel like they've raised some real underachievers.
And he's been doing this for quite a while, and I know it takes. I know there's a couple of 47 days of filming or whatever, but it must take before and after, or maybe before, must take a fair bit of his time as well every year.
Yeah, it would do. And look, if that's the show that then takes off, because there was a filming of the America versus the rest of the world that was straight on the back of it, and you can do 2 seasons in a year. America's doing that now all the time. So yeah, like the franchise of Survivor, I think it's just continually growing in popularity in a number of different countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to be quite busy,
Yeah.
in hosting all of those elements.
Yeah, nice. I do recall the very first few seasons of Australian Survivor. They didn't use the either American format, or they didn't have the
Yes.
understanding of how it was done and successful over there.
Yeah.
So then they brought that in, and then ever since then, it's
Oh,
just
what a difference! It's thrived.
yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
I mean, I was probably with you. I watched that Australian version of it,
yeah.
and you can't compare the two really.
No,
I mean, the format that they've got now and the quality of the production is
yeah.
leaps and bounds ahead.
What's something that everyone asks you now you're back that they want to know about the show that we might not have mentioned yet?
Everyone asks about